Hey everybody, welcome to another JetBrains live stream. I'm Khalid, your local developer advocate. I see there's a lot of people in chat right now from all over the world. I'm really happy to have you here, having fun chatting with you. So keep chatting away. I think it's really fun. But before we introduce our guest today, I'm going to do a little bit of housekeeping like we typically do. So let's get into it. Yeah, I mentioned the chat. It's busy right now. So if you have any questions during the live stream, please feel free to ask them there. Talk amongst yourselves too. It's kind of like a fun experience. So yeah, check out the chat if you're watching us live on YouTube right now. It's over there on the right-hand side. An inevitable question that comes out of all of these live streams is this session being recorded? And I'm happy to tell you that it is being recorded. If you come back, if you have to leave, take the kids, take the dogs out for a walk, anything like that, you can pause us. You can come back to JetBrains TV and watch the rest of this live stream. Also, be sure to like and subscribe, and you can get more content like this as it becomes available. So do us a favor, like and subscribe, and you can always come back to this particular session to watch all the things that are happening. So, yeah, and one more thing, we're doing something special today. If you stay tuned till the end of the live stream, we're going to be offering a free 3-month personal subscription. It's a 100% discount code that you can use on the JetBrains store to get a license of ReSharper or Dot Ultimate. So check that out. Without further ado, I'm going to introduce my special guest today, really one of my most favorite people on the planet. They call him Citizen Matt, but I call him King Matt. Let's introduce him. Developer advocate here at JetBrains, Matt Ellis.
King Matt, huh?
Yeah, you're the best.
I'll take it. This is good. Hey, Khalid, how's it going?
It's going good. So I'm glad I could wrangle you into this live stream. So I think we're gonna have a lot of fun.
I hope so. Yes.
Yeah.
It should be good, I think.
And you're exuding enthusiasm, and the chat can feel it. I can feel that.
I am. It's just natural British understatement, really, isn't it? It's yes. It'll be quite good.
All right, cool. Let's go. All right, let's move on. This is your part, so I'm gonna stay quiet. I'll monitor the chat again, folks. If you have any questions during this live stream, please feel free to ask them there, and I'll try to interrupt Matt every once in a while, asking those questions. So go ahead, Matt. The stage is yours.
Thank you very much. Yeah. So, hi everybody. We're going to have a fantastic time. I'll try and be a little bit more enthusiastic than we're like, sell it. This is going to be great. Today we're going to talk about ReSharper tips and tricks. ReSharper is a fantastic tool. It's been around for 20 years now. We've been developing it for a long time. It's only just celebrated its 20th birthday, and I thought it was a good time really to have another overview of what it can do, because I find myself using certain parts of ReSharper and Rider, the tools that we've got, and working in a certain way. And I had to give a demo to a company, and as part of that, I kind of refreshed what's going on there. And it's just like I'd forgotten about a whole bunch of features, and I thought it would be really nice to be able to sort of show some of these features and some of the things that ReSharper can do for you in a different way. So there's a couple of things I'm going to show. We're going to start with a couple of slides, and I'll just kind of show a whole bunch of demos. As Khalid said, if you've got any questions, throw them in the chat. I'm sure Khalid will answer a bunch of them while we're there. We can bring them on screen and talk about them, because it's all going to be very quite loose and free form as we show a whole bunch of things, really. I've got a number of obvious tips and tricks to start with, really, or rather it's more like advice, I guess, this first bit here. The first one is to read the manual. There's a huge amount of documentation. It's fantastically written. The team behind the web help we've got in JetBrains do a brilliant job. So there's actually a really fantastic manual which you can read. So read the fantastic manual. That's what it stands for. The other tip really is to not worry about the shortcuts. Pretty much everything has got a shortcut, and that can be quite daunting when you start out with something like ReSharper or Rider or whatever. You don't have to learn them all. You can learn them gradually, and I'll kind of give you some tips about how to do that as we go through. There's a couple which it pays to learn up front. And once you kind of got that, though, they're like the entry points into everything, and you can start from there. Next tip is a really good one: is search, don't browse. Switch off the Solution Explorer. Stop reaching for the mouse all the time and kind of clicking and navigating like that. ReSharper builds an index of your project when it starts up. Use that index. We can navigate around and get to your code really, really quickly if you do search. And it's not just about files and things as well. We can search for a whole load of things. It's great. Last kind of bit of advice there is be curious. And the whole point of that really is that ReSharper is a big tool. There's a whole lot to it. It can do a whole load of things for you, and it can help with the way that you work, but it can also do things which you're probably not used to. As I was just saying, you get into a way of working, you don't quite realize that there's a way that it can help you and make you a little bit more productive in a different way. So what I'm saying with be curious there is take a little bit of time to actually learn the tooling. ReSharper's got a great set of menu items. You can spend 5 minutes and just have a quick scroll through those different menu items, see what's available there. Something catches your eye, it's like, well, click it, see what happens, and go to the web help and figure out what it means. It could be something which is really useful and can actually save you a whole bunch of time. The second thing as well is not just the menu items, but the options as well. ReSharper's got a ton of options, and some of them are real hidden gems. I'll try and call out a couple of them as we go through, but there's a whole load of ways you can configure ReSharper and of course Rider and all the other tooling to do that. I've actually just mentioned Rider there. One thing I should probably point out is that ReSharper, we're going to be talking about ReSharper inside Visual Studio here today, but ReSharper is also the engine behind Rider. So a bunch of these tips apply to Rider as well. Maybe not directly, maybe not in exactly the same kind of way, but the features are roughly the same. So there's a whole load of overlap with things like that. I want to try and split these down into a number of sections. I'm going to start off with some important things to know there. We're going to have a look at some navigating code, exploring code, which is a bit of a different thing to navigating, editing, inspecting, refactoring, running, testing, and debugging code. There's a whole load of things that ReSharper can do there. It covers a huge amount of the life cycle of your application. There's even a miscellaneous section for things that just don't fit anywhere else, like regular expressions. I mean, everybody loves regular expressions. So, right, let me just switch screens and we'll go straight into looking at some demos there, I think.
All right.
Right. There we go. Yeah, cool. Have we got any questions before we even begin, Khalid? Has anybody said anything yet?
No, a lot of people are joining us from all over the world. So thank you from Brazil, Toronto, Ohio. So you have a captive audience here, Matt. So I think a lot of people are excited to see it. So go ahead.
This is great. Truly international. This is what we like to see.
So, worldwide.
This is worldwide. ReSharper is a worldwide sensation. So we can go with this. Okay, so we've got ReSharper. We've got Visual Studio up on the screen here. I've got ReSharper installed. I want to start with a couple of the very sort of simple things. And the very first thing you really want to know is search everywhere. This is going to be Control-T in the Visual Studio key map, which is pretty much the most popular one. I'm not using that one because I'm a bit old school and I use the IntelliJ IDEA keyboard shortcuts. So for me, it's Control-N, but Control-T is search everywhere. And this will do, as I say, ReSharper builds an index of your project as it opens up, and we can search pretty much everything here. We search for classes, files, symbols, and even text there. So you can see we've got text going on there. So if I just start typing iSignal, it'll be able to go and find things for me. It can find the type iSignal. Next one down, though, it finds the file iSignal CS, and then it also kind of matches the letters in there. You can see there's a bit of an anagram of iSignal in there, external login, sign in async. But we can also search for text, which is really useful there as well. So we could probably search for I know there's some text like present. No, maybe it doesn't like the brackets. And so you can find text files there which have got the word present in there, which is a really useful way of just searching for text. There's a whole bunch of tips around just this little pop-up menu as well. So I can search for iModular tenant events, and it'll sort of find those things as I go along. Or I can just take it a whole lot easier and just do IMTE. The camel humps is a great way of searching. And this is why I say get rid of the Solution Explorer. You don't need it because you can very quickly navigate around. If you've got a type which is made up of different words, just take the initial letter of each of those words, such as modular tenant events. You got IMTE, and we can very quickly match those and go and find them. What other examples have we got? We can have, I want to find shell, let me look. So the reason I left this open here is I wanted to find, there you go, shell option constants. Let's go and find that. So if I do shell option constants, you can see actually that's the very first item we've got. But if I was looking for something else, so for example, we've got down here, string not ends with operator comparer, and I know I'm looking for some kind of string operator comparer, I can just sort of narrow it down a little bit by giving just bits of names there, and I can very quickly navigate to the types that I want. So it's surprising how quickly you can navigate around while you're just by using these initial letters and then a few extra words there as well. Excuse me. So let's do something else. And we're doing iModular tenant events. And in fact, let's just go there. One of the things that you could do here as well with this navigation item is you can press the keyboard shortcut multiple times. So if you press it once, you get search everywhere. If you do it a second time, now it can just be type names. So I'm no longer looking for file names here or symbols. It's just going to be type names. And if I press it another time, then it's just going to be my text. So I can start typing present, and again, it'll match text files for me there. And so I can just kind of cycle through these and keep going, which is very nice. There's a separate keyboard shortcut if I just want to have a look for files and folders, which is great. So I can have a look for, what's it called, iModular tenants events, and it finds the file for me there as well. We've got a couple of buttons in the top right here where we can do things like showing the Solution Explorer. So I can use Control-Enter, and it could actually find it in the Solution Explorer for me. Or if I go back there, we've got another button here, which is really useful, and you can use that with the keyboard shortcut then, and that will actually open it in the Find Results window. So if you've got a pop-up there, which is a sort of transient thing, it pops up and then it disappears when you select something. But if you wanted to select everything that matches this particular pattern, then you can have it open up in the Find Results window. And we should then be able to open up a preview there as well. So you can actually sort of very quickly sort of navigate around your code and find things that match and see the previews as well. The other thing that is really useful, similar sort of pop-up. So we've got our search everywhere, go to file. The other one, which is really useful to remember as a keyboard shortcut, is go to action. This one's really useful because if you can't remember the keyboard shortcut of a particular action, then you can go and find it using go to action. So this is, well, in fact, I can just type it now, go to action. And here you can actually see what the keyboard shortcut is there, Control, Shift, and A. I think it's the same across different key maps, and you should be able to do it, but you should also be able to find it in the, oh, hello. Come on, Visual Studio, you can do it. No, Visual Studio doesn't want to show the ReSharper menu. All right, so we're going to have to use our go-to actions because there it is. There we go. But you can find it there under the Navigate menu's Go to Action as well. So Go to Action is a great way of being able to find something. So if I wanted to rename something, let's say if I wanted, let me just highlight that, Go to Action, I can just start typing rename, and it'll find it for me. And again, it'll give me the keyboard shortcut there as well, F2 in my keyboard key map there, so that I could just use the keyboard shortcuts if I find myself doing this often enough and being able to use it and navigate. So go to action. I'll try and use that one a lot to sort of show how this works. And the other ones are the sort of go to navigate around and jump to your files and so on. The other thing which is quite nice with the search everywhere is we can use some wildcards. So let's just go and find my CSHTML. So I can do star.cshtml. It'll find things. Star.ping for any ping files, or JSON, and so on. So it's a nice way of being able to use wildcards. Or I can even use spaces as well to delimit things by namespace. So if I want to look for Orchard Core, a different namespace there of, let's say, environment. And so we're already matching environment.cache there as a folder, but now I can just do environment cache, and you can see that everything that has been here is matching based on namespace as well. So if you can't quite remember what a particular type is called, you can also sort of narrow things down based on namespace. So it's very flexible, and there's a whole load of things you can do. Once you're in the file, you can then do go to file member, which is for my keyboard shortcut is Control and F12, and that shows you then all the members that are in this file here. So I've got two different actual classes. I've got my interface and my implementing class. And then if I wanted to navigate to somewhere, I can just start typing and it will jump straight to it. So I can then jump to my removing async there. If I type that again, and I can jump to my version in the class, it'll navigate around. And if I type that, then we can see also we've got search in file, which is pretty nifty as well. So if I just jump over to, say, iSignal, you see you can very quickly navigate around and jump around just by using these things. If I want to type that and type present there, we can see that's being used in a comment, and I can navigate there. So if you know that there's a phrase or something used somewhere and you want to go and find it, you can very quickly and easily find it with find it by search, find it by text, sorry. One of the sort of interesting things, let's just jump back to, no, why is not, that's not working, okay. If we are here, we might realize that actually we're now sort of covering our own text there. We can't see so much of the file. So what you can actually do is just hold the control key down and it sort of fades away. So you can actually read what's being written underneath there. So again, a nice little tip. If I've started typing and narrowed things down, but I still want to look at what's going on, just hold down control and it fades away for you. And you can still see what's going on and still working. The other useful thing for navigation is, of course, the navigate to keyboard, context menu we've got. One of the nice things that go to action does is it kind of shows you a history of the things that you've been looking for, but it also shows you the main entry points to a whole bunch of other functionality. So if there was you see the items in green there, they're the items I've used before. But the items down here, refactor this, inspect this, and in fact navigate to there. These are our kind of main entry points into pretty much all of the functionality of ReSharper, and these are always available. So if you do go to action, you'll see this straight away. And if it isn't there as well, you can just start typing, and then navigate to will then give us our context menu for navigation. And this is a great way, again, of being able to navigate around your files. Let me just jump over to the actual type, to the interface. And if I do navigate to, again, Control-Shift-G here, so I could start to learn that keyboard shortcut the more I use it. I then get my context menu of items that are available here. And I can go to the declaration, that's like doing control-click on something. Implementations of interfaces, for examples. I can do base symbols or derived symbols as well. So derived symbols is a good one, because here I can see now all of the types that implement my interface. They derive from my interface and implement it. You can see some items are in bold here. The useful thing with that is those are classes that directly implement or derive from this particular class. Everything else then is sort of derived indirectly. So we've got distributed signal, and if we jump there, we can see that sort of derives from signal, which eventually derives from modular tenant events, which then derives from our starting interface, which is pretty nice. So we can very quickly sort of navigate up and down the class. Great tip for when you've got a pop-up menu like this is you can sort of jump to the mouse or use your up and down arrows to navigate around, or you can just start typing. So if I wanted to get to the Redis service very quickly, I can just start typing that. It'll match it, and then I can jump to it. Once I'm here, I can then do navigate to again, and then I can do things like base symbols, and that will show me all the classes that it derives from. And so you can see we've got module tenant events again, my interface, and I can sort of very quickly jump back to where we're going. There are some other really nice features in here which you might want to have a look at. Things like extension methods. This is always a bit of potluck to see if there are any classes which are extension methods for a particular type. So if I know I've got iModular tenant events and I want to see what other extension methods I can use with that class, I can use this navigate to item to show me there. You can see here that these are fairly simple ones. These are all extending objects. I'm sure we've got some other extension methods in the class, but it all depends on, sorry, in the project, but it all depends on where you're going. And we can then go off and we can find a whole load more extension methods too. Or we can have a look at consuming APIs and exposing APIs. These are great helper methods. I use these quite frequently. And the idea of this is you get to say, well, who would I pass this to for consuming APIs? Or if you've got exposing APIs, it's how do I get one of these? And that one's really useful. I use that one quite a lot. So if we've got this iModular tenant events, and it's like, great, that's the class I need. That's the interface I need. I want to call a method off that. How do I get one? Well, then you can use the exposing APIs there, and that will show you who returns that particular type. That one's no good because nobody's actually doing it. Let's see if this one works. Exposing APIs. Nope, nobody's doing that. Yeah, you just have to take my word for it. That's a good one. That it will return that. It'll show change token. There you go. So you can see that. If I navigate to iChange token, if I did my go to menu again, exposing APIs, and you should be able to see where it's being used. iChange token is actually used in is a library item, and you can see it's actually being returned back by a whole load of things. So I can see an awful lot of items where it is. If I wanted to navigate that a bit closer, I can press that button in the top right again, and it shows me everywhere it is, puts it all into my find results, and I can sort of navigate around and work on it. Again, I can show my preview items there. Let's actually look at something in my source code, and we should be able to see the preview items, and it's good. Useful top tip for the find results is if you've got a lot of results here that you want to sort of work through and sort of see if it's a useful thing, you can sort of just step through them as you go, but you can also hit the delete key. Where are we at? There, and it'll gray it out. Oops. And it'll gray it out to show that I've had a look at these and that they're not the items I'm interested in anymore. And so you can keep a track of where it is that you are as you're sort of working through something to make sure that something's been updated, the documentation is correct, or whatever it is that you want to have a look at. Okay, so I think that's pretty much it for some navigation stuff. The other main keyboard shortcut I want to show you, which is really useful, is Alt-Enter. I'm sure you're all probably familiar with that. If you've got an inspection here, for example, which is namespace not corresponding to the file location, you can hit Alt-Enter. You get ReSharper's nice pop-up menu of all of the items you can do at this place here. There's a load of tips about this. So I can cover that in a bit. But the first thing I want to show you really is this magnifying glass here, search item. You can click that and then just start typing. So again, I could type something like rename, or I can just do Alt-Enter and then start typing here as well. So Alt-Enter is very much like the go-to action item we had there. You can, on iSignal there, sit Alt-Enter. There's a bunch of things I could do here as my context items, or I could just start typing and find the things that I want to do. So again, if you can't remember what the keyboard shortcut is, if you can't remember what the keyboard shortcut for go to action is, you can just use Alt-Enter and then start typing, which is a really useful way of finding things. Last couple of things I think for navigation before we go any further. Find usages is a really big deal. I'm sure you're familiar with that one. If you want to see where iSignal is being used, you can just use find usages there. There's a lovely little button here in the middle of the icon. Let me just sort of zoom in a bit on that one to make sure we can see. This one, which is grouping by kind, which is really useful. If it's not enabled, you get to see how it's grouped, like based on project type and member, which you can choose here. And so I can see that it's in my orchardcore.media, whether my type and so on. But this button here is really useful because grouping by kind allows to show you how it's being used and not just where it's being used. So you can see these items are being used as a base type or as a field declaration, interface qualification, and so on. Really useful way of understanding a bit more about how your code is being used and not just sort of where it is too. So that one's a really good tip. Let me just check what else did I want to show. Last other thing in here is, I know I said to keep your Solution Explorer closed. Sometimes you do want to use it, and it's actually very useful that we've got a way of being able to locate the file that you're currently in inside the Solution Explorer. So maybe you want to right-click on it and do something with it, show properties or some such. In the Navigate To item, you can then show in, there's scrolling quite fast there, but we selected there and it'll just select it in Solution Explorer. Really quite a useful item there, and it's got its own keyboard shortcut as well, so you can work with it. So that's kind of some of the things we can do with navigation. I also talked about exploring code, and that's kind of a different thing to just navigation. You want to be able to sort of find out how your code is being used. You'd spend a lot of time reading code, so we want to be able to understand and read your code just a little bit more sort of efficiently. And we can do that very easily with our control-click navigate and our find usage and that, but there's a few more useful tips we can do. And one of my favorite features is part of this one as well. So if I just jump to a method called configure pipeline async, we've got a class here, a method here. This is really useful. I've found some things here. I think there might be a bug in it. Perhaps I'm going to fix it, but I want to know is how is this being used? Who's calling this? And what I can do is use, again, my find usages, where I find usages there, and we can see, okay, it's being used from here, which is what build pipeline internal async. It's like, okay, well, let me do find usages again with keyboard shortcuts. Okay, it's being used for build pipeline. And I can sort of do this recursively to understand how things are going. But there's a better way of doing things like that. So let me just jump back to, let me just type all the wrong buttons. Jump back to my configure pipeline async. We've got another thing we can do, which I'm going to do with Alt-Enter and then start typing. And I'm just going to look for incoming calls. We've got an inspect this menu item, which has got an item there for incoming calls. It's got a few other things I'll show you in a sec. But incoming calls is really useful because it kind of does that recursive find usages for you. And it shows you then in a call tree here to show you exactly how your code is being used. We can see that configure pipeline async is being called by build pipeline internal async. I can double click on that to navigate and see what's going on. And then I can sort of just keep on sort of walking up the call tree there to see exactly how this method is being called. And we can see here it's actually been called from invoke and run async, and so that I can then sort of extend these items further. And we can see we actually got execute async, which was being used. It was just doing a full search there to see where it's being used. I think it's used with reflection in this particular project. So that's a great way of working with your code. I use this particular thing all the time for reading code because I understand then how something is being used in a call stack and what the actual application is doing with it. There's a couple of other useful things that happen in a similar sort of way. We could do something like, if I'm in my code here and I've got builder and the value, you say I've just been doing some debugging, I'm looking at the builder item here and it doesn't look right. It's like, well, okay, well, where does that value come from? Where is it created? How does that get found? So I'm going to do my inspect this menu item. And here we can see we've got value origin and value destination. Value origin is the one we're looking for, and that's answering the value as the question, where does this particular value come from? And that will then do a similar sort of thing and recursively walk backwards to show me, oh, it's okay, it's being passed in as a parameter. And you can then sort of see, well, it's then being created as an item here with new. And we can say, okay, well, it's based on this context item here. And so I could do the same thing again, inspect this, value origin. And then we can see, well, okay, that's where the context is coming from. It's being called there as an extension method. So it's being called like a method value there. And we can sort of basically work backwards to see that's coming from the shell context. And we can then keep working back and back and back until we see where this particular shell scope, which holds the shell context property, is coming from. And you can see and find out a whole lot more. So it's a brilliant way of understanding where these values come from. You can, of course, go in the opposite direction as well with the value destination. And you can see then how it sort of the value ends up going. So if I create something and I wanted to know, well, who uses that? Where does it go to? Then you can actually sort of step forward and go through there as well and see what's going on. And you can sort of do this recursively and keep on stepping down and seeing where things are being used. Really great way of reading your code and understanding what's going on. And this is the kind of thing I mean by sort of exploring your code. Other useful features we've got here is the ability to look at a type dependency diagram. So if I just jump back to my iModular tenant events, if I show you all the derived types there using the keyboard shortcut, you can see there's a whole bunch of things. And what we can do is use the item here to show on a diagram. And if we click that, ReSharper will build us a diagram and actually show us how these items are being used sort of together here and what their relationships are and who's deriving from what and so on. And we can also sort of hover over items here to see more information, so we can see what other references there are, and I can add those into the type diagram, and it will then being able to, let's just not hover over that, build up a type diagram then to sort of see how these items are being used, what their relationships are, and so on. You can also sort of click on items there and navigate to useful files and things like that too. So great sort of diagram there for understanding type diagrams. No, type dependencies, type relationships. Last thing I think for looking at some exploration of code is the IL viewer. So we've got the ability to look at what's going on as part of the compiled item there. It's a bit of a niche thing. You might not always need to know this, but in fact, let's get to a C# file there. It might be useful to see what's going on sort of once it's been compiled here, and you can see all the different IL instructions that are going on, all the different calls that are happening, and so on. If you hover over an instruction there, ReSharper helpfully gives you a tooltip to explain what's going on. But where this might be a little bit more useful is the idea that you can actually have a look at the different C# that this sort of refers to as well. So if I just swap back to high-level C#, you can see now it'll sort of decompile this code as the compiler sees it into high-level C#, so it understands things. In fact, I've got a better example if I just go back to my configure pipeline async. If we have a look at this, then there we go. We can see configure pipeline async. It's an async method. It's doing a whole load of things, and it looks perfectly normal C#. But maybe I want to understand, well, what does that actually mean? And I can have a look at the low-level C#. And we should see now that actually you can see how the compiler is rewriting this C# async method to be a state machine. And there's a whole load of things that's going on under the hood here about how C# and the compiler is rewriting your nice async code into something a bit more imperative, a bit more sort of simple to maintain a state machine and to work with things there. And you can have a look at exactly what the compiler is doing with your code. So very useful way of doing that. And also one thing which is nice about that is it kind of syncs up with the file as well. So if you are in here in configure pipeline async, it'll select the appropriate statements as well as and show you then exactly what the matching items are. While we're talking about that, actually, it's worth looking at the decompiler. If I just control click on application builder, then you can see now we've actually we're actually showing you some source code which I downloaded earlier. It's really quite useful because when you click on this, normally it downloads the file, but it's already got it and cached it. If I hover over here, we should be able to see we're using a temp folder there. So this isn't C#, this is part of my code. This is C# that's been downloaded based on the debug information for these particular files. So if I, in fact, let's go and see if we can do the same for iApplication Builder. There you go. It downloads the information and then shows you the actual file. We can keep on doing that to sort of understand a bit more about what's going on with our third-party code. And in fact, if I click on type now, that should show me .NET code. And you can see it's now actually downloading a PDB for the standards or .NET code, and it'll go off and it'll actually find the C# file that relates to. This one's implemented in 4 different files, so I can now actually show you part of the partial class, which is there. Very useful way of seeing what third-party code is up to, which is nice. One of the things you can do here is if we did find usages, because this is a library method, find usages will find where type is being used across everything, all of my reference libraries and so on. But what we can also do is if we do Alt-Enter and I do find usages, we got find usages advanced, and that gives us a few more options here as well. So we can say, well, find usages here, usages of members, derived types, and so on. But I can also specify the scope as well. I can say, well, find me items then in solution and libraries, or just the current project, or only in the solution. So I can say, limit now my scope here to find it just in the solution. And we can see that type is, of course, going to be used quite a lot in this particular solution. But it's a nice way of being able to navigate and reduce the scope of where you're going to search. And in fact, if we jump back to iModular tenant events, and we've got to go to, no, we have to do find usages, bracket type, advanced. One of the useful things you can do here, let me rephrase that one. If I'm on a derived type such as modular tenant events, and I want to find out where activated async is going to be used, then I can do my find usages advanced, and I get to choose, did I mean where modular tenant events activated async is used, or the item on the interface? So again, I get to choose whether it's what my target is that I'm searching for, whether it's the interface method or the actual implementation method, as well as being able to choose my scope and so on. So find usages advanced is a very nice way of being able to control how you can do, excuse me. Yeah, excuse me. Yeah, so it's a very nice way of deciding how you're going to find the usages of something there. Well, while I'm just choking momentarily, Khalid, do we have any questions going on?
Not specifically. A lot of people are sharing their favorite shortcuts in the chat, so it's nice seeing people have favorite shortcuts. That's pretty awesome. I will say the vibe that I'm getting from a lot of things you're showing right now is like, this is really great for senior developers, architects. You know, I know a lot of people right now are trying to transition away maybe from .NET Framework into the .NET Core era and move their code base forward. So if you're a senior developer or an architect that needs to do this research to know if it's viable to kind of move forward, some of the stuff you've been showing, Matt, is just kind of like chef's kiss. So it's pretty awesome. So thank you. All right, I'm going to throw it back to you.
Yeah, thank you for covering perfectly there. That's good. Able to have a small drink and a small cough, so this is good. But yeah, I very much agree that there's ReSharper is great in that it kind of gives you a whole set of tooling that you can grow with you, basically. So you know, if you've got Alt-Enter and start typing to find things, you know, and go to everything, you can get a long way and do those kinds of things. If you kind of realize that you're doing particular things frequently, more often than not, ReSharper has a feature to help you with that. And kind of the more interesting things you want to do, the more the tooling works with that. So like the incoming calls, for example, is a great way of being able to read code and understand code, because you can easily use it to sort of navigate around and find where these particular methods are being called, which is really useful. And that kind of segues quite nicely actually into what I wanted to show next, which is all about editing. But before I do that, I just want to kind of agree with you that it's great to share keyboard shortcuts. That was one of the things which I thoroughly enjoyed back in the days when I was actually doing development for a living. And as a teams, we would be using ReSharper. And you know, if you did pair programming or something, somebody would type something and something would happen really quickly on the screen. It'd be like, whoa, what did you just do? What did you press? What was that? And it'd be like, yes, this keyboard shortcut is really cool. And they'd show you what it is and everything. And it was a great way of learning those keyboard shortcuts and finding out about new features of how these things work and so on.
Yeah, we're gonna clip that "I agree with Khalid" part and just play it on repeat on JetBrains TV. So
Yeah, yeah,
I
we
like that
can.
you said that.
It's fine. We can edit that in post. It's good.
Oh man, don't edit it out. It's important. All right, Matt, go
Yeah, yeah,
ahead.
yeah.
I'll give you the stage back.
Yeah, so so I want to talk about editing. There's a whole ton of really cool features around editing, and not just in the kind of code completion. So we've obviously got the code completion there. You can hit control space, and you've got your pop-up items there. I could just start typing, and it'll match things for me there. And you can see here actually in the brackets, it's got in system, which means that it's going to introduce a new namespace. So if I was there and just type string, let's say actually string builder using system.text, we can see if you keep an eye on the usings at the top. Once we did that, it'll actually bring in the import for us, which is very useful. You just need to start typing, and ReSharper will find the type for you and import the type system, the type namespaces as well. There are a couple of other useful code completion items here for. Let's just try and find something a bit more interesting here. Yeah, so if I've got, say, a string and I wanted to assign things to a string, I can use equals smart completion, which is Control, Shift, and Space. Oh, hello. There it is. Yep, Control, Shift, and Space, which is smart completion. And what that does is it will only try and complete items that are appropriate for the target that you're trying to do. So I'm trying to assign something to a string, so it's only showing me string values here. If I made that as an int and I did smart completion here, it'll only show me things in the context which are integers. Right there, the only thing it can find is, well, okay, min-max values and so on. So what I could do is actually do it again and do double completion, and that can actually do smart kind of items there to try and find me other things that are available in the context that's useful. So maybe stopasync.id get hash code might not be terribly useful, but maybe my stopasync ID is. So double completion is useful. You can actually just do it once, or you can do it a second time to find other useful things there as well. It's kind of highlighted differently, but it can bring in a whole lot more information, which is useful, especially in your smart completion. So let's do smart completion, double smart completion, and it's going to find me a whole lot more things. Most of them there are two-string in the end because there's nothing in the context that's terribly useful. But this is good. But then completion is just kind of one thing we can do. Oh, in fact, actually, nice tip about completion. I don't know if you're talking about keyboard shortcuts, Khalid, here's a question for you. How do you complete something in when you're doing completion? Do you use tab or do you use enter?
I typically try to use tab, but I also sometimes use enter, but I always get them mixed up personally, but tab is typically my muscle memory
Yeah.
go-to. Yeah.
And tab is the usual one, and they are different. People don't necessarily realize this. So if you have your completion going on here, tab will actually replace the item that's there. So if I'm doing has services, I can just hit tab and it'll complete it like that. But what I can also do is use enter, and that will add it, which is perhaps a bit surprising, and it's giving me broken code here. But that's because it's useful in certain scenarios, especially if you're kind of chaining calls as well. Where would be a good example of this? Not entirely sure I'm going to be able to find a good example. But you might want to say, well, okay, I want to keep my HTTP context there. But I don't know, let's do to JSON document. No, that's going horribly wrong. You might want to be, yeah, so okay, is cancellation requested? And I wanted to do something like can be cancelled. I hit tab out of muscle memory myself now. Can be cancelled. I can do that, or I can just do is that and is stopping token dot, and then I can add things in there. So I don't have to sort of delete some code there in order to be able to sort of replace it or extend it and so on. So difference between tab and enter can be really useful items here, especially if you've got something like here where you've got a whole bunch of code going on there, but you want to just sort of add to it without necessarily removing it.
I will add, like, if you're using a Fluent interface, like if you're using Fluent
Yes.
validation or something like that, or even in ASP.NET Core where you might chain a bunch of middleware mappings, that's a really good place to kind of switch between tab and enter. So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. That's kind of where it works really nicely. It's very easy to sort of insert something into a Fluent chain, which is great. Other useful thing that I want to show you is complete statements. So that's good. So here's a good example here. So let's say I'm typing this. So I've got try get scope async. I don't want to do dot name. What I have to do now is I have to close brackets and put a semicolon, or I can just use Shift, Control, and Enter, and ReSharper will do it for me. So I don't need to worry about any kind of syntax there. It'll do it for me. What's the thing there? So if not success, and I could just do Control Enter, and it will complete the item for me and complete the syntax for my if statement, which is really useful. But there's even a better way of doing that if you've got a statement here. So we can use postfix completion. So I could type success dot, and then I can do not here, and we can see what a different kind of icon in the completion list there, which is a template. And if I hit tab on that one, I've got my not statement. Or I can do success dot if, and I can do my item here. So I could sort of chain those together, and I could do success dot not dot if, and in here I wanted to be return. I can just then obviously type return. If I wanted to return a value, let me see if we've got something down here which returns a value. Fine, let's just create a method. Private. Oh, I can't type. Whatever. And if I had, let's pass in a string here just to show me, I could do s.return, and that will kind of write it for me. And postfix is really useful because it allows me to change the way of working there. It's a very sort of effective way of editing your code. And go on. Why is not search not working there? There it is. That took a moment. Because what you do is you focus on the actual data that you're using, and then you can use the postfix template to write the syntax around you and get ReSharper to do the syntax for you. There's a whole bunch of items here which you might want to have a look at and learn. For each is really useful. I find that one there. Not null, and so on. These are some really useful items there to be able to edit your code. So if I had an item here which was a string array, I could do s.for each, and it would just kind of write those for me. So those are names, and I can very quickly then start working. So name.return. And so I can just work on the data that I'm working on and let ReSharper sort of fill in the syntax. It's a different way of working, different way of thinking, but you end up thinking more about the data rather than the C# bits itself, which is pretty nifty. Before moving on, the next thing I want to show you is about plain old editing. If I kind of just suddenly decided that I wanted to move this block somewhere, I can highlight it, I can type it and so on. But that's all very old school, and we don't like that. There's a much nicer way of working, because we might actually sort of introduce a problem there. If I just missed it by one there, I might have done, and it's like before you know it, oh, everything's got messed up because I'm not working with code there, I'm working with plain old text. ReSharper can help you with that. And there's a couple of different ways we can do that. We can do extend selection, which is usually the Control W keyboard shortcut. And you press that repeatedly, and we can extend the selection to statements, which is really nifty. And you can use Shift then to sort of reduce that as well. So let's if we could even start here, we can just sort of slowly extend out and so on. So then you could do that. Oh, I managed to press the wrong key at exactly the wrong time. So highlight all that, cut, and then paste. And it's a lot more sort of, you know that you're going to be working with that a little bit better, bit more safely, because you're working with statements. But we can do better than that one as well. If you hold down all the modifier keys, we then sort of, ReSharper starts to highlight the code, and you can actually move things left and right, and you can sort of up, down, left, and right, and you can actually move the code all around. And you can see we're actually stepping with moving a whole statement and stepping that over lines and so on. And you can see here we're actually stepping over the for each, but if we want to go inside it, we can actually use the right arrow key and move inside, and left will push us out as well. And let's just move that around there like that. You can also take the put the cursor on the last brace there and actually use that to move the brace itself, and that changes the scope of items, which is really cool. Lots of ways of being able to move your code around safely and move statements rather than moving plain old text, which is really, really useful. Let's move on. I think we'll have a look at some look at some formatting. Let's jump over to our BCL calendars. Might want to be able to sort of format some code. Obviously, ReSharper allows us to do that. We can hit Alt-Enter, select items. We've got reformat and cleanup. If we open those up, there's a whole load of things we can do. We can just hit Enter there, and it should be able to clean up most of our code there. It's removed that. It hasn't removed our new lines, but that's okay. We can configure that. But one of the things which is really useful is being able to configure things. If you jump into the options for ReSharper and you have a look at the C# formatting styles, you're suddenly going to realize that there's actually loads and loads and loads of different ways of formatting your code. There's a better way of being able to sort of configure things. Oops. Where are we? There we are. Let's just highlight our code here. What we can do is use Alt-Enter again. We can go back to our reformat item. And if you go down here to configure code style, then we get a dialog which has only the items which apply to the code being highlighted there. And we can make changes here that will actually be shown in the file as we're working there. So put else on a new line, we should be able to uncheck that. And you can see how that's going to affect your code as you work. You can see here that some items are being covered by editor config. Those items are highlighted in yellow. If you don't know what editor config is, it's really useful. It's a text file that you put into your repo, and you can check it into source control, and everybody can share the configuration, which is useful. You can do the save to item here. You can save to editor config, save it to this computer, which would be global settings. So it applies to all of your projects, to the team shared item here. So it's saved as a ReSharper setting in a .settings file, which you can commit into the repo, or as a personal file, which would be .settings.user, which is usually ignored from settings as well. And what we're talking about, where are we? ReSharper options. What we're talking about, editor config. If you just go to the general formatter style page here, you can actually export everything with this write current style to editor config button here. You can write everything to an editor config file, and it'll give you a dialog of actually what's going to be changed and added there, which is useful. You can edit things interactively. So I could then say, let's go with a blank line there. Remove white space on blank lines. Let's just undo a couple of things there. If I then click save, again, I get my dialog, and it shows me what those changes would be, which is a nice way of seeing what's going to get saved to editor config before actually using it. Okay, what should we have a look at next? Let's jump straight into, I think, last couple of things. We've already talked about some of the inspections that ReSharper's got. We've got these highlights here. What's this one? This one is saying unexpected indent. We can use Alt-Enter to actually sort of fix things up, and it'll work for us there, which is very nice. We've got some dead code there, redundant else keyword, and then we can, again, use Alt-Enter to fix that. Let's just undo that. Some useful tips that we've got here really is that if you've got an arrow here, you can expand this, and you can remove all of the items in the method, in the file, folder, project, or solution, so you can work through everything. You've also got these items down here, which are really useful, these inspection items. And these allow you here to be able to sort of disable that inspection if you don't particularly like it. I mean, ReSharper ships with about 2,500 different inspections. They've all got default values, which we believe are sensible and appropriate, but not everybody always agrees with that. So you can configure all of these, and this allows you to be able to disable it for a file or just a sort of once in particular file, and also to change the inspection severity as well. So things can be shown as an error, a warning, a suggestion, and so on. So you can just change it quickly here. Let's go back to this one there. That one is being shown as a suggestion, but I could upgrade that one to be a warning now, so that it's actually got more useful. It's more important. Or I can say, well, actually, that's a hint now, so it's don't bother me too much with it, but it's there. You can just about see it. It's just kind of gives you a few dots at the start of the file. What we can also do with this one, though, is instead of changing it here with this drop-down menu, if you click this button here, you actually get a dialog. And so we can say, well, okay, let's make it a warning, but then let's save it to my team shared thing so that everybody in this project will get those particular changes. Very useful way of working there. The other really useful thing is that most of the inspections that we've got have this item here, which is why is ReSharper suggesting this, which, go on Windows, you can do this. You can change focus. No, it can't change focus. There we go. I don't even think it's even opened the file. But then we can see that this is the kind of thing that would get shown here. We get an inspections wiki there where we explain what's going on there. So instead of just blindly accepting the suggestions that ReSharper gives you, you can see what's going on here and understand why we've made these decisions, why we've got these default values, and quite often there's a explanation as to what you can do to fix it. Here's one. I had one open here. It gives you example code here of what's not quite right, and then it shows you what it would change it to afterwards there. So it kind of gives you more context rather than just you having to try and figure out what's ReSharper is trying to explain. And again, with Alt-Enter, is don't forget that you can start typing here as well. So again, if you wanted to refactor, I'm in the wrong place for doing refactorings, so let's put it on there. If I wanted to type refactor, I can do refactor this, and then I get to see all of my useful refactorings that are available for me here. Just a quick note about refactorings. I find that the one I use the most is of course rename. Please do not ever use find and replace to rename things. Just let ReSharper do it for you. You can do rename here, and we can do that, and we can make sure that only the appropriate symbols are renamed. It's not going to cause any problems with anything else called calendar type in this class. It's not going to change any text in comment files. It'll just quickly and easily change that particular type for you. Make use of those the tools there to actually do that for you. And I think we're starting to run out of time. So I'm going to finish with two last little tips, I think. If we go into our ReSharper menu here, we've got this tools item here, which gives you sort of miscellaneous type things, which are useful. We can validate regular expressions. We've got a to-do explorer, which is very nifty in that if you've got any comments in your code which have got to do there, this can find them all for you here. And it can sort of collate those, so you can then use that to browse through your to-dos. And it's like, okay, well, what is it that I've forgotten I needed to do? And you can keep a track of those and work with it. If I jump to, where are we going? I've got a view model. There's a regular expression here. If I go to ReSharper tools, validate regular expression, test regular, I can do the same thing with my Alt-Enter, test regular expression. I can then sort of start typing to see if this matches. I can't remember what that regular expression does, but this doesn't match it. I could then try and figure out what it is that I need to do to make it work. I think it's there we go. It's a URL, so it will then show me what it is that's actually matching, which is very, very helpful. And then the other item that I like the most in this particular section here is the browse stack trace. If I've got a log file, I can select which has got an exception in it. I can copy and paste that from my browse stack trace here, open up this item. It'll look to see what's on the clipboard, and if it's a stack trace there, it'll give me a great annotated view of the stack trace there with all the links all of the methods and namespaces and classes, turned it into hyperlinks, and I can click that to navigate around. And again, it's a great way of being able to understand what's happening in your code there. Which I think we've pretty much run out of time. So I think I'll leave it there, although there's a ton of other things I could be talking about. I don't know, Khalid, if we have any questions, if anybody's got anything that they'd like to share.
Nobody has any particular questions, but
Mhm.
the thing that sticks out, the thing when we ask people in surveys like, why do you have ReSharper? Why do you use ReSharper? A common thread in a lot of our surveys is I use ReSharper to learn new concepts and to stay current with current syntax in C sharp. And the thing you pointed out is like, why is ReSharper suggesting this? I think is like a great resource for a lot of developers because it's really 20 plus years of ReSharper developers like and their knowledge encapsulated in this documentation. So
Yes.
if you're looking to kind of upgrade your skill set or understand why something is being suggested to you, it's really like a tome, a historic tome of all this .NET C sharp knowledge that I think is invaluable to a lot of people. So yeah, I think
Oh,
that's pretty cool.
yeah, absolutely. The explanations here are well, basically, ReSharper can give you a lot of advice. A lot of saying, you shouldn't do this because this might be a thing, and you might not understand why it might be a thing. And it's always good for ReSharper to actually show you. So just to remind you on that one, if you go to this inspection item here, we've got why is ReSharper suggesting this?
Mhm,
And there's a ton of information. Please do not just blindly accept what ReSharper tells you. To sort of use it as a chance for learning, as Khalid says, to understand why we're suggesting this. We're not doing these things just for fun. That there is genuinely a good reason behind it. It's not we're not trying to annoy people and put lots of squiggles everywhere. There's a lot of thought being put into this. The teams behind the different language features, they study the specs like nobody's business. They understand these languages inside out, and they
mhm.
come up with some great ideas of how to make your code better. And some things might be trivial, like this indentation thing, or it might be much more interesting about what was it this one was talking about? Windows and focus. Cast expression can be replaced with simplified type arguments. It's great here. So you've got unnecessary sort of type information being put in there. We can actually change it to use values there instead.
Mhm.
It's good stuff.
We do have a question is like, do we have a place where we can access all these shortcuts so that if someone wants to kind of go through and learn them, Bola may have not been at the beginning of this live stream, but you said something prescient, but we do have a shortcut guide. But again, it's like with shortcuts, you really only need to know two: Alt Enter and Search Everywhere, which is
Yep.
typically like Control T. And everything inside of our tools, ReSharper, Writer, any of the other IDEs, is typically indexed. So if you think something is possible, bring up that search menu, look for an action, and see what that particular shortcut is based on the current key map that you've selected. So, um, like PDFs are nice, but the tool itself is always has search functionality. You don't have to learn every shortcut. Learn the shortcuts that you find valuable and kind of
Yes.
improve your workflow. Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly it. If you find yourself doing something frequently, just like I want to show the inspect this menu here, it's like, oh, okay, that's the keyboard shortcut. We're showing it right there. If you do rename frequently, then that one's fairly standard keyboard shortcut, but you can use it there. If I want to show the refactor this menu, okay, Control Shift R. So it's like, well, okay, I can just do Control Shift R now. I don't need to do that.
Mhm.
Same with navigate. It's like, okay, well, navigate. I mean, for one thing, it's hard to spell, but I can type navigate to and show that, but it also showed me it was Control Shift G. So okay, now I can quickly start to use it. And this
Mhm.
menu's got all the keyboard shortcuts there as well. I find that the more times you start doing a thing, you see the keyboard shortcut and you just kind of absorb it, and you then start saying, well, I can just make sure I get there quicker.
Yeah, I will say too, it's like if you are finding a particular shortcut key, because Control Shift Alt B, that might be a lot of key combinations. If you struggle with that, all shortcuts are kind of reconfigurable, so you can always
Mhm.
assign it to something that feels a little bit more comfortable for your particular hands. Because we're not all kung fu masters who can kind of bend our fingers in every single way. So
Mhm.
yeah, keep that in mind.
And because you've got these different entry points here, so if I was in go to action, I'd navigate to is already there. If I was in here, I could just type that. If we can't necessarily, remember what the keyboard shortcut is, perhaps you can remember the keyboard shortcut that shows the navigate menu and just get there. And it's like, okay, well, implementation, I don't use it often enough, or that keyboard shortcut's too nasty. I'll just, show this and go down one and work from it from there. So
Mhm.
there's different ways of accessing the functionality.
Yeah, I will say too, Matt, what you're showing right now is like there's more functionality that's not always tied to a keyboard shortcut. So if you find a feature in any of our tools, specifically in Writer, and you want to map it to a shortcut key, you also have that option. So yeah.
Yeah, a good example of that, if I'm go to action here, go to text, which kind of pops up as part of if I'm doing go to everywhere, and if I do, I think it was present, you can see go to text down here is finding items here. We don't have a keyboard shortcut for go to text, but if I go to my actions, go to text, there's no keyboard shortcut there, but I can use that and then type present and I get those items there. But then just go into Visual Studio's options and you can add your own keyboard shortcut.
Mhm. Very cool. I'm scanning some more. Again, a lot of people are saying good things about ReSharper. Someone said, been using ReSharper since version 4. Thank you. It's been a great learning tool for refactoring my sloppy code as a beginner. If it runs, it's good code. That's all I got to say.
Ship it. This is good.
Ship it. Yeah.
Test it first, but ship it. It's fine.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
and testing
Please.
ReSharper is obviously it's got great support for testing as well. So there's so many things in ReSharper. It's hard to fit everything in.
Yeah. All right. Let's kind of wind it down. We
Yep,
did promise
we
a
did, didn't
code
we?
here, but Matt, you have a slide here for your favorite. You spelled favorite wrong though. No, I'm just
No, no,
joking.
yeah, that's yeah. I think exactly.
uh,
Let's yeah, behave. Yeah. Just wanted to kind of realize we've just been speaking for the better part of an hour, and there's a huge amount of tips and tricks there, and there's a lot of things I didn't cover. And so it's like the things that I wanted to take away really are some of these kinds of things. Search, don't browse, as we just said. Go to action. Um, go to everything to find out anything related to your code. Alt enter and start typing is go to action, so you can get to everything from those kinds of things. Everything about your code, everything about the IDE by searching. So we don't need to browse anymore. Yeah, Alt Enter to get to your entry points is a good one. Useful one is the difference between Enter and Tab in code completion. It's surprising how many people don't realize that, and they use one and not the other, and so on. And you can also actually change that in the options. Let's not dig through that right now. Um,
mhm,
the other things which I find really, really useful is the amount of features we've got for editing. The code completion, sorry, the complete statement is really good. Shift, Control, and Enter. It'll finish off the sort of syntax for you. Add semicolons. It adds closing brackets and so on. Moving statements are really cool, so you don't have to copy and paste a line. You can actually just move statements around however you wanted to. Another one of those which it didn't quite show there is you can actually kind of just do it within a statement here as well. You're not moving a full statement, but I can kind of swap things around like that. Also useful for when you've got a method with, oh yeah, sorry, I was on the wrong screen. Let me show that one again. We can actually swap between items there. I can move those around in the different types. And if I could find something with more than one parameter, which is not going to happen, you can change it with parameters and then use Alt Enter to rewrite your code as well, which is a very nice way of being able to do some refactoring. Sorry, I'll get back into slides because otherwise I'll just talk about this all day.
Right. Yeah.
So where are we? Most statements, yeah, configure formatting. Again, we've got so many options for formatting. You can configure it how you want to, but being able to select it and use Alt-Enter to interactively select the items which are you want to format and how that works, and being able to save that as editor config or as shared settings is great. Postfix templates changes the way you work. You concentrate more on the data and then let ReSharper handle the syntax for you. They're very smart things. Have a look at the list of postfix templates in the options page to sort of understand what's going on there, to learn more about what's available to you. Incoming calls is my favorite feature of ReSharper and Rider, full stop. I use it all the time to read code. It's fantastic. Run configurations is something I didn't even get around to covering. The idea of those is with Visual Studio, for example, you can set up your arguments for running an application. And then if you want to change it, you have to change those settings and then change them back again afterwards. What run configurations allow you to do in ReSharper is set up multiple of those, so you can have different items being able to run with different arguments and different working directories and so on, and have those saved as well, and allow you to choose between them without having to rewrite things all the time, which is good. And then finally, yes, why is ReSharper suggesting this? Understand why we're talking about these kinds of things, which is useful.
Yeah.
So that's me done. Khalid, I believe you offered something at the very start of this webinar.
Yeah,
Way back
I just we'll get to that, but I did want to end with, ReSharper is a foundational technology here at JetBrains. So it is a developer tool. It's a U tool. It's something you can use in your development environment. It does power our other products, though. So if you want ReSharper features in, say, your CI/CD pipeline, ReSharper powers the .NET side of Codana, which runs kind of in your CI/CD pipeline. It gives you the same ReSharper experience, but as part of your build process. Rider obviously runs ReSharper.
Can I just interrupt with that one? Just to sort of clarify with the Codana, the experience it gives you there is the inspections. So we've covered a bunch of things here without looking too much into the inspections, but what Codana gives you is it runs all the inspections as part of CI/CD and gives you a report that you can drill into and set quality gates for and so on.
Yep, exactly. So, yeah, it's like ReSharper definitely helps you, but it can also help your team. Check out Codana; it's pretty cool. I think one of our advocates as well, Matthias, wrote a really good blog post. You can check that out. Rider, I said anecdotally, Rider, if you read it, it's ReSharper IDE, and we decided to tack an R at the end, so that's why it's called Rider. Use that at the next party you're at. It's a good anecdote. And obviously, our next generation tooling editor, Fleet, uses ReSharper as its backend as well. So ReSharper is in a lot of places. We also have a lot of other tools that lean on ReSharper's knowledge. So check those out. It's pretty cool. Yep. Upcoming here on September 25th, we have .NET Days, and one of our ReSharper devs, Andrew Karpov, is actually doing a deep dive into ReSharper. His talk is called "Not Your Father's ReSharper." Matt, that makes me feel old, by the way.
Makes you feel old.
So the QR code is there. If you want to check that out, just scan that. You can go see what other sessions are going to be available on .NET Days. So
I think as well it's worth sort of commenting that that's is kind of highlighting how ReSharper itself has changed over the 20 years, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. So I'm excited about that one because, again, it's like I think a lot of people have set expectations for what ReSharper is, and again, it's been 20 years of ReSharper evolving and continue to evolve. So it's definitely something worth checking out. So on that note, thank you everyone for sticking with us. And yeah, that's a cool pin. I think I have one of those somewhere. I think my wife took it, but I'll have to find it. So here is what we promised. If you folks are interested in trying ReSharper, or you want to try out .ultimate, .ultimate has ReSharper, Rider, our profiling tools of .trace, .memory, and .cover, I think, is in there as well, and some of the other .NET goodies. You can get 3 months free for personal use. if you use this code, start with ReSharper now, you can redeem this code on checkout at jetbrains.com/store/redeem. And this code is good up until September 19th, so 1 week. So if you're watching this within this time frame, you can use this code, and you can get 3 months of all of our tooling, or .NET tooling, I should say. So the other thing I want to say too is like our IDEs come bundled with things like database tools and web tools. So you're getting a little bit of extra stuff too, if you end up going with .ultimate or ReSharper. So on that note, let's kind of wind it down here. I see a lot of people thanking us. Thank you for joining us. It's been a lot of fun.
Thank you.
If you want to know more about ReSharper, you can head on over to jetbrains.com. Please go read our blog posts. I write some, Matt writes some, the other advocates write some. So you can check them out at blog.jetbrains.com/.net. Follow us on social media. If you haven't already, you're watching us on YouTube, please, like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. And if you want more Matt, because who doesn't want more Matt, you can follow him on social media. Come on, Matt. Don't sell yourself short.
It's always a pleasure to do a live stream with you, Khalid, because you just feel so much better about yourself at the end of it. It's nice.
You feel better about yourself. I don't know about me, but we'll get to that. So I'm gonna let Matt live out his YouTube star fantasy. Go ahead, Matt. You can beg for more YouTube algorithm.
Oh yeah. Like and subscribe, people.
Yeah, thank you. You
know what to do.
you know what to do. On that note, again, Matt, thank you so much for doing this live stream. I think everyone really enjoyed it. And yeah, I think next time we see you, we'll see you at .NET Days. So be sure to watch out for that. So thank you, folks. We'll see you next time.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone.
Yep. Bye.